Okay, welcome everyone. It looks like we have people joining us already, which is wonderful. My name is Meredith Burks, and I'm the Marketing Communications Director for Seed Savers Exchange. I'm just going to go over a few housekeeping items before we get started with today's presentation. If you are joining us via Zoom, please take a moment to change your chat drop-down box from all panelists and all hosts and panelists to everyone. So that way everyone's going to be able to see your comments coming through. We'd also love to hear where you're joining us from. If you're joining us through YouTube Live, please feel free to make a comment there on where you're joining us from. We only have 1 hour together today, so we're going to be quick with this, but because of the time constraints, we're not going to be taking audience questions, but we do have a handout that will include links to connect with our featured partners on their websites, social media accounts, etc. So we hope that everyone is inspired to continue learning and engaging in the conversation around seed rematriation. So we also encourage you to use the chat as our featured partners are giving their presentations to share your thoughts, feelings, experiences. The session is also being recorded, so we're going to be sharing that out through Seed Savers Exchange's social media accounts. So if you want to watch it again later, you'll have that option. So now that the house has been prepped, I'm going to hand it over to Phil Kauth, our Director of Preservation for Seed Savers Exchange. So over to you, Phil. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming today. Appreciate it. Sorry, my voice is a little raspy today, but hopefully you can understand me okay. I'm so pleased to have everybody here and to have Shiloh and Rosebud as our guests, and to have Shelley back hosting and moderating. Just a little bit of a reference for those of you who weren't here last week actually, and just as a refresher, Seed Savers Exchange was invited to participate in the Indigenous Seed Keepers Network's seed rematriation program by Rowan White, who is the chair of our board of directors at Seed Savers Exchange, and also helped found the Indigenous Seed Keepers Network. And in 2017, she approached us and asked us if we wanted to form a partnership with ISKN, and we said yes. And so for the first couple of years, under Rowan's guidance, we were growing varieties on the farm, and then Rowan would come and take the seeds back to the communities who were looking for those seeds. And then in 2020, with Rowan's guidance again, she recommended we invite Indigenous farmers to actually select the varieties to grow so they could do the rematriation themselves. And so that's where we were introduced to Shelley Buffalo and Jessica Greendeer and Rebecca Webster, who some of you saw last week. And that went really great. And then this year, the partnership expanded even more, from 3 to 8 partners. And some of the really great things about this partnership is that the women and the farmers, they choose what they want to grow and rematriate to their communities of origin. So again, that's one of the reasons the collection at Seed Savers exists, and to connect people with the seeds that are in the collection here. So that being said, I want to introduce Shelley Buffalo, the moderator. Shelley is an enrolled member of the Meskwaki tribe and lives on the Meskwaki settlement with her 2 sons. The Meskwaki are unique in that their land-based community is a settlement, not a reservation. Established in 1857 with the purchase of 80 acres near Tama, Iowa, the Meskwaki settlement has grown to approximately 8,400 acres. Shelley joined Seed Savers Exchange for the 2021 growing season as a seasonal seed steward. She now works for Sustainable Iowa Land Trust, also known as SILT, through the AmeriCorps Vista program. Her service assignment with SILT is to build capacity in farmer outreach in order to increase land access for socially disadvantaged farmers. Shelley served her community recently in coordinator roles at Red Earth Gardens and with Meskwaki Food Sovereignty Initiative. She continues to advocate for food sovereignty and local foods through her personal consultancy, networks, and partnerships. She is an advocate for land back, Indigenous foodways, food justice, and rematriation. So that being said, our good friend, our good mentor, Shelley Buffalo.
Thank you, Phil. And now I'm going to introduce our panelists, starting with Shiloh. Shiloh Maples is an Anishinaabe educator, community organizer, and seed keeper who works in partnership with community members and leaders from the Great Lakes area to create a more sustainable and equitable food system. Shiloh has a master's degree in social work from the University of Michigan, where she specialized in community organizing. While a student, Shiloh recognized the powerful potential of food systems to heal and transform both individuals and communities. Since then, she has been committed to serving the Indigenous food sovereignty movement and revitalizing ancestral foodways. For nearly a decade, Shiloh worked within Detroit's Indigenous community to establish a food sovereignty initiative that increased access to ancestral foods and created opportunities for the community to fully practice their foodways in the urban landscape. Currently, she is the program manager for Native American Food Sovereignty Alliance. So in the digital handout, which will be shared in the chat, there is a link to the Indigenous Seed Keepers Network, as well as a link to subscribe to Spirit Plate Podcast. And you can follow Shiloh on Instagram, and the link is also included. Now introducing Rosebud Bear-Schneider. Rosebud is a mama, daughter, sister, cousin, auntie, and friend to many. Born and raised in Detroit, she now resides in northern Michigan, where she's the market manager and farmer for the, Rosebud, would you help me with that word?
Sure. I guess we didn't practice that one, did we?
No, we didn't.
It's Zibumijoang.
And oh, thank you.
And Monogan Market.
And Monogan Market. Like
Yeah.
that one I could figure out, but I didn't want to mess up the first one.
No worries.
Thank you. Which is in Little Traverse Bay, which is the Little Traverse Bay Band of Ottawa. Her involvement with Indigenous food sovereignty work spans the last 12 years, first as a breastfeeding educator and maternal infant home visitor with Healthy Start and WIC, and then as a farmer and nutrition educator with the Sacred Roots Food Sovereignty Project in Detroit. Her time with Sacred Roots ignited the passion Rosebud has to feed and care for her community. She also expanded her roots throughout the Detroit Agriculture Network as a farmer and former board member at Keep Growing Detroit. As a producer, she continues to provide traditional foods across Turtle Island. Rosebud remains dedicated to supporting the health and wellness of our community by educating on the importance of revitalizing Indigenous foodways. Her lifelong goal is to give her children and the coming generations the knowledge and skills to live a well-rounded, healthy life woven with our ancestral ways. And learn more about the farm and market through our digital handout. Also follow Rosebud on Instagram. The link is in that handout. And please like the farm and market on Facebook. So let's launch right into our questions for our two panelists. So I'm going to preface this one by saying that I spent a lot of time restating this question because I want to try to individualize our questions for each of our webinars. So please forgive me. I want both of you to keep in mind that you're going to bring your own unique experience and perspective on rematriation. So this was this morning's take on rematriation for me. Rematriation is an act of restoration, as in to rematriate our ancestral seeds. Rematriation is also a state of being when we come into knowing Indigenous women's knowledge and power, which, like our seeds, have been waiting for us to return to. My experience of rematriation feels like finally coming into my womanhood and out of a state of subordination and objectification. What is your experience of rematriation? Shall we start with Shiloh?
Sure. So, yeah, very similar to what you shared, Shelley. For me, reconnecting to my traditional foods and seeds and practices has really helped me come home or return to my sense of self as an Anishinaabe woman, and really heal from, the last 500 years plus of things that have happened to our peoples. And so, I see rematriation as returning to being in community, being in relationship with all of our relatives, including our more than human relatives, or, our plant kin, and our traditional foods.
And for those of us that aren't familiar, would you just describe Anishinaabe in a little bit more detail?
Sure. So Anishinaabe is kind of an umbrella term for the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi people, the Three Fires Confederacy, who are the Indigenous people of the Great Lakes region. There are other people, Indigenous peoples, originated from the region, but we are three distinct nations that were in a confederacy together, dating back to, all of time, I guess. And but Anishinaabe refers to us as a collective group. And there are different interpretations or translations. One of them that I've been taught is original person.
Thank you. All right, Rosebud, your turn to talk about your experience of rematriation.
Sure. So, Ani Buju, Babasanoko Indigenous, Makwadodem, Wawiatanang and Domjaba. My name is Rosebud. I'm originally from Detroit, like my bio says. It's really an honor to be here. Just want to start that off and to speak with you all this afternoon and to share space with my sister here. And really, this work started off right alongside Shiloh. So it's wonderful that I get to still share space with her and share this work together, even though we're, hundreds and hundreds of miles apart. And, for me, rematriation is really, again, reconnecting to so much that I lost that I didn't know I lost, and searching for things that I didn't know what I was searching for. And we found that in the soil and under the sun with these seeds and with these seed relatives and with each other. And it's such personal work. So I'm going to get a little choked up because it's just so deeply like in my heart. And, like Shiloh says, it's part of our healing. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say because I'm going to keep crying. But
Oh, thank you, Rosebud. And I'm right there with you. I am. It's interesting how something like so personal yet at the same time we're going through this shared experience, right? Of return to these ways of knowing and power, that colonization. sought to wrest away from us for hundreds of years, but it's always been there. And so it's the experience of being able to restore that to ourselves it's incredible. So
Yeah,
thank you. I feel you totally.
It's hard to put words to it. And you know, that's something that I've learned in this work, is that it's not just work, it's part of our blood memory. And one of the most beautiful things is being able to do this work with people that are feeling the same way I'm feeling and experiencing these things right along each other, and having that love for each other and what we're doing is probably tops it all.
It does. And Shiloh and I have shared tears together in our conversations about rematriation, and it's interesting because it's not so much tears of pain as it is like these tears of relief, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
Of joy, you know, because we're
yeah. And actually, Shelley, if you don't mind, we've prepared a few slides, and a few of my first slides are actually highlight some of that first part of Rosebud and I's journey together. Would it be okay if we share those right now?
Oh, absolutely. And I think I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think I forgot to allow time for presentation. So please, let's see all of the slides and hear more about.
Okay, great.
Your share.
So, you know, as both of our bios said, Rosebud and I both got our start in Detroit. And we together, in partnership with the Indigenous community there, started a program called Sacred Roots. And the main goal of it was really to create space and opportunities for our community to practice and preserve their foodways in this urban landscape of Detroit. But when we started this work, you know, the foods that community members really wanted access to no longer existed in our community. We didn't have access to them anymore. And so I sent out a handful of letters to, you know, a couple of food programs, native-based food programs I had heard about, and told them what we were trying to do in Detroit and asked them for their support in the form of seeds. And let them know that I would do my best to try to take care of them and to pass them on to others and to carry their stories about their communities of origin. Little did I know at that time, I knew nothing about seed saving at the time, but little did I know what path I was committing myself to. But I did I kept that promise, and to care for the seeds and to help others do the same. And so as a part of Sacred Roots, we started it was very small seed garden and seed library. And we also incorporated seed literacy and education into all of our other programming. So we also taught cooking classes using those foods, but we also always, at every cooking class, included information about the seeds of the foods that we were featuring that particular recipe in that class. And whether it was gardening workshops, even if it wasn't focused on the seed aspect, we always brought seeds into the conversation. And this was part of how we helped to refamiliarize our community with their traditional ancestral foods and build their ability to be seed stewards as well. And next slide. You know, and so we were there for several years. And then in 2020, I started working for Native American Food Sovereignty Alliance as the coordinator for the Indigenous Seed Keepers Network, which Phil spoke about a little bit. And really the aim of the Seed Keepers Network is to support Indigenous communities and growers who are working to who are part of this ever-growing food and seed sovereignty movement across Turtle Island, also known as North America. Next slide. And as far as like what type of support the program offers, we host peer-to-peer learning and networking opportunities, provide resources, and offer capacity building trainings to growers. We're also building a network of what we're calling regional seed hubs. And so these hubs are either organizations or tribally based initiatives that we've identified as leaders in their local area. And so we're offering seed cleaning equipment for both their use, but also for the local community's use to increase the efficiency that they're able to clean the seed. And then this year, we're also hoping to offer these hubs mini grants to host hands-on field days as learning opportunities for growers in their region. And we also have some plans to do larger infrastructure and capacity building projects with these regional sites. So although we're really focused on giving support to individual growers, we're also thinking about how we can create a larger supportive system or environment for us to really build the resiliency of our local seed supply and make our ancestral seeds more available. Next slide. And one of our most recent resources that we've created that I wanted to highlight is our Seed Sovereignty Assessment Toolkit, which provides tools and is a guide for communities as they go through the process of conducting what we call a seed census. And really what a seed census does is it helps communities or individuals get a clear picture about what the state of seed is in their community. We hope that they'll be able to learn and identify, specific areas that they want to focus their initiatives on to help strengthen the local seed supply. The slide up here just kind of lists some of the different areas that the seed census kind of looks at, under this umbrella of seed resilience or seed system resilience. We're thinking about availability and access, varietal suitability, the quality, and there are all sorts of different factors or things to even discuss under each of those. And so we're going to continue creating resources to help support communities in that work. Next slide. As a program or network, the Indigenous Seed Keepers Network, as Phil mentioned, also helps to provide some support to communities as they're seeking reconnection with their ancestral seeds and preparing to bring them home from institutions like museums and university collections. We're going to continue to develop guides and other resources to assist this process. Pretty shortly here, we'll be releasing a seed rematriation action guide that has a set of resources and tools to assist communities in beginning that process of bringing their seeds home. Next slide. And I just want to wrap up in saying that, this work of reconnecting to ancestral foods and seeds is something I practice in my personal life as well. It's not just, a lot of people talk about, a big part of their identity is their job. It's kind of like the other way around, is that I get to go and live my life as an Anishinaabe person at work all day and support other Indigenous people and living, their traditional life ways the way that they want to. And so doing that in my own life, I've been reconnecting to my foods for, probably the last close to 15 years now in different ways. And it's really been a process of remembering and relearning these food traditions. And it's really been a profound part of my path to reconnect with my Anishinaabe culture and ancestors. I have last year I moved to a new home where I have a few acres now. Before, all of my growing was at work in Detroit, our community work, and I'm really happy to have a space where I can grow food for my own family and do seed saving at home. And my hope is to eventually offer occasional workshops and events for our local Indigenous community here in Southeast Michigan, so that people can have that support to relearn their food traditions and that we can practice them in community together. Because so many of these, both agricultural and cooking practices traditionally are done in community. They're really labor intensive and they're intended to be done together. And so, but there aren't very many spaces where we can do that. And so I'm hoping that in the next few years, I'll be able to provide that space for my community. But so that's a little bit about like my start and like what I've been up to. I want to pass it over to my sister friend Rosebud to share a few things. There's a few links if you want to follow the Seed Keepers Network or follow me on social media. But yeah, I'll pass it over to Rosebud.
Thank you, Shiloh. Rosebud, while your slides are queued up, would you share, and I guess it's probably in your slides, but if it's not, maybe share a little bit more about your location. Yeah, love to hear from you.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so like I said before, I am the Monogan Market Manager. We are located in northern Michigan, about 10 minutes south of Mackinac City, literally like the tip of the mitt. Monogan is our farm market, is our store, our brick and mortar store, and that is located in Mackinac City. And the farm is here in Carp Lake, about 10 minutes south of Mackinac. And that's where we do all of our farming. I live here on the farm. It is owned by a Little Traverse Bay band of Odawa Indians. I've been here, I've been with Ziba Mijuang for almost 3 years now. Originally from Detroit. My family has been involved with the Native community my entire life. We were a powwow family. We traveled all over, I didn't start working within the community until my children were born, and having them really, did some stuff to me for sure, and made me, just kind of reevaluate where my life was going, and helped me find some real passion and working within the community. My slides are really specific on just this last growing season. We decided so we're on a 300-acre plot of land that's owned by the tribe. 100 acres of that is tillable, and is in Ziba Mijuang is its own business, so we have control over those tillable acres. In the front of the farm, off the barn, there's maybe like a half an acre that when I visited back in 2017, that space had always been their traditional garden where they were growing the Three Sisters. Since I've been here, I've been really hoping to, expand that space. And in my time here, continue to grow out the Three Sisters, different varieties from year to year, but also adding in other perennials and edibles and, other medicines that we need. So, and kind of, working on a long-lasting design that that the community can can enjoy, years ahead. So we're calling that the Monogan Get-to-Gon. Get-to-Gon just means garden. And so this year, let me see here. So pictured here, it's on the bottom. It's who I really want to highlight. Her name is Sarah. I hired her on this year. She is a tribal citizen here, didn't have a lot of experience, you know, with gardening or anything like that, but she was my right hand all summer, and this is a picture of her vibing out in the weeds with her pitchfork. So, you know, and I wanted to just give her a little shout out because she did such phenomenal work, and she was such an amazing partner to go through this growing season with. You can go to the next slide. Every year, we have a community planting ceremony. That's something that we did the first year I was here. Those are things that we did back in Detroit. So we invited some folks out to conduct the ceremony and invited community members to come out. So this is a picture of us. This year we did all mounds. From year to year, I like to change like how the design of the garden. And this year I wanted to do all mounds and, you know, try to stick to as traditional as possible. So we are planting here. They're planting our Red Lake flint corn. You can go to the next slide. And I just, Monogan means it grows well. That's the name of our store. So I felt that was just, you know, it was great to still continue to use that name in our growing efforts. This is just a list of what we grew out this year. Our Red Lake flint corn, the beans were Odawa pole beans, the scarlet runner bean, Chippewa bean, and Onondaga cranberry bean. And then an Indian pumpkin. And those seeds were the seeds that came from Seed Savers this year. Can go forward. As Shiloh mentioned, you know, this is a community effort, and you know, that is something that I have you know, carried with myself, you know, from Sacred Roots to here. You know, that is how we build capacity. That is how we heal. That is how we you know, we protect our next generations, right? And you know, often I'm out in the garden by myself, but doesn't mean I'm, you know, completely alone. All my seed sisters are out there. But again, this year I wanted to you know, right now I wanted to highlight and shout out some of the folks that helped me this summer. You know, I left Detroit, left my home, and you know, familiar with Little Traverse Bay. I've got a lot of extended family up here. But you know, never lived anywhere else before. So I very much had to create and had to build, you know, another community outside of my community and learn about what, you know, what goes on here. These women here, I was able to meet them you know, these last couple of years, and they were such a huge help this season, and they were looking for a space to, you know, just to be in sisterhood and be in community with folks, and you know, and to care for the land, and you know, be together. And really, for me, that's what it really all comes down to. Enjoying these things with people that you love, right? In the center picture is the center of the garden, and we create. So I don't have a very good picture, but essentially that outside space looks like a big medicine wheel, and the center of that is this turtle that we. This picture is the day that we built that turtle, and I don't know if you can tell, but you can see the turtle head, and then the mound, and then we had my son planted sunflowers on her back. And that's Sarah again, vibing out in the sunflowers. It's, you know, it's one of my greatest joys is to watch people grow along with our seeds, and to watch them get so excited and feel so like proud of themselves of what they did. So again, it's just such a joy to be able to do this kind of work. You can go forward. Harvest this season went really well. I didn't know what to expect from those pumpkin seeds. As you can see on the bottom picture on the left, all of those are the pumpkin seeds. They all look different. Essentially, they all ended up kind of looking like inside what the picture on the right looks like. And then I've got just a kind of small little picture up top of all of the beans that were harvested, and those did really well. We're in the far north, not as far as the UP or anyone further than that, but oh, my dog's talking. Understanding this region is so much different than Detroit. So still trying to, grasp what works up here and what doesn't. So, it's all trial and error. I'm sure all you growers can appreciate that. You can go forward. And then just a quick little picture of our Monogan Market. We didn't open last season because of COVID. So this year we did open. This is a place for not only for us to sell our produce and our maple products, but also it's a hub. It's an Indigenous food hub for other Indigenous food entrepreneurs and local Indigenous artists. So we sell everything from smoked fish, wild rice, beadwork, all kinds of different fun things in there. And if you had a chance to come visit us this summer, you saw what we were doing. We have a little cookhouse that we do, have a little carryout window, and tried our hand at, tacos and wild rice and smoked fish bowls. We were able to host some really great folks out here this summer. So that's my contact information if folks want to have any questions. But yeah, that's what I got.
Thank you, Rosebud. Just some, one of the things that you've said a couple times is vibing out, and I love that. Because it does really put you in the space of being, in our gardens and, working with our seeds and tending our plants and, finding all of those connections and stuff. I mean, it is a vibe, it's also hot, right? But it's also hot and hard. Oh, I can't hear you.
It's hot and dirty.
Yeah. There's a great vibe there too. I see one of the questions here. What's the name of the bean that you grew this year?
Oh, I grew 4 different types of beans.
Okay.
Yeah, so we did the Odawa pole bean. This is Odawa territory. So we did have a small supply of seeds that we had already been growing out.
There it is.
But we added more on. And then more listed. The Scarlet Runner bean. That bean really likes it up here. And then the Onondaga cranberry beans and the Chippewa beans, those also did really well too.
Thank you. Yeah, this webinar and the presentations, it's a lot of information. So some of that's lost in trying to cover it all in this short hour. So I appreciate you going back to that. And another thing I wanted to mention, and this goes back to Shiloh, what she mentioned is that, Rosebud, the farm that you're doing this work on, is 300 acres. Wow. With 100 acres tillable. I'm just blown away by that.
Yeah, and I think we're really maybe only growing on maybe 10 of that.
Yeah. And still 10 acres, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And Shiloh, as you said before, access to land for growing is typically not like this, right?
Yeah. No, not at all. And that was one of the things when we were in Detroit that we struggled with so much, like how, this food sovereignty work looks really different in the urban setting. There are a lot of similarities, but also if you don't have a land base like your tribal relatives might, you don't have legal autonomy to create your own laws and policies. We had to come up with our own methods of striving towards food sovereignty. But yeah, one of the huge things was not having a land base. We tried some things out in community garden in a park for a couple years. That was really challenging because of security reasons, but yeah, the land access is a huge thing for, anyone that wants to grow, but I don't know, there's an element about being an Indigenous person in your homeland and not having access to land. It's another layer to it. But it's really beautiful to see. I've visited the ZB farm a few times, and it's incredible. And each year they're continuing to, expand the growing area. It's really inspiring.
Yeah, and it does, this reflects something that I want people to be mindful of, is that each of the growing efforts comes with its own challenges as well as strengths. But one of the things is that to I guess not make assumptions about land access. And the fact that the Little Traverse Bay Band of Odawa has committed 300 acres to their food sovereignty program is it's just really inspiring. So it's wonderful to hear about. And then too, Shiloh, the farm that you are establishing and the future plans, for having that be a base to grow this movement from. So I was so eager to get to the questions earlier, but we did get that big rematriation one to kind of launch this webinar. We got that one covered. So the next one is about, about the support systems that either that you've had in place or found along the way. And this could be referring to, the 2021 Seed Rematriation Partnership, or you could talk about the bigger picture, however you want to frame that. That's up to the two of you, just about your support systems and maybe even some unexpected ways that you found support or camaraderie or knowledge.
I'll go ahead and just jump in and say real quick, I mentioned a couple already, the Seed Keepers Network, other Indigenous growers, the community that we built around Sacred Roots is something that's still, the program is still there, but the community of folks that were participating in the program are still there, still people we're connected with in different ways. But, and my sister here, obviously, Rosebud, always a support. And, but just something I'd like to touch on real quickly is I'm a big believer that if something doesn't exist, that we have to create it, not only for ourselves, but for those future generations. And, these support systems were in place. And so for me, a large part of my organizing work is how do I create those right environments for those things to transpire? I'm not actually doing that relationship building. People are doing that with each other. But how can I create the opportunity for that? And so I often think about how can I be that community auntie, or how can I provide those things that I didn't have growing up, so that others have this opportunity to live this beautiful way of life, and don't have to struggle the way that we did. So if I push that a little bit further forward, then I think my work has been done.
Want to jump in, Rosebud?
Sure. Yeah. I again, I agree. And I think that's one of the most one of the most beautiful things that drew me and captivated me into this work is the community part of it, is the partnerships, are these connections that we end up creating, because we're, a lot of times, especially doing this work, we've, get involved in conferences and food, Indigenous food summits and things like that. And we are brought together with like-minded individuals that are doing the same work that we're doing in their communities. Often, we all have these same stories. I'm thinking of one. We were at Meskwaki listening to Rowan White, and this gentleman is telling his story, and the whole room is bawling because we can all like identify with with his story. And I think, to me, like that says it all. That's the epitome of these partnerships, of this work that we're doing. And thinking back to the folks that we worked with in Sacred Roots, I left right before the pandemic started, but still connected with folks over social media and, all these different ways that we can connect with folks, and watching them, and I'm sure, Shiloh, maybe you can agree with this, but watching them start their own gardens in their homes, and they're like, these are the seeds that we got from Sacred Roots. This is what we're doing. This is what we learned. And then they're applying all of this stuff that Shiloh and I spent all this time, putting together for them and creating all these spaces, and they're doing it. And it's just so beautiful. And they're still doing it. And that is the whole, that is a huge part of food sovereignty, is building this capacity. And I often hear my sister say, I'm just going to put myself out of a job because I want the next person to come in and take over what I'm doing. And that's really what this is about. Building that capacity and creating spaces that our kids don't have to, they don't have to question about where they came from. And we're not having to heal all these different, and reclaim all of these different ways because it's been lost. We talk about being a good ancestor, and that's definitely one way to do that. So.
Thank you, Rosebud. So, we all have challenges and barriers, and both of you, of course, have mentioned several of those along the way. Are there any, when we're specifically looking at that area, are there any that pop to mind? And also, how are the ways that you've worked through them?
You go ahead first, Rosebud.
Oh, challenges. Well, I can say, I could have all the passion, all the information, all the ideas of where I want to take something. But often, we're in systems that don't often share those same ideologies or can even see what you're seeing. And that's something that, is a huge challenge, especially when it comes to food sovereignty, because not really a lot of people even can understand what that means, or, even understand what role we play in our food system. And having to, we spend all this time educating ourselves, but then we have to fight with these systems, these, overall systems that we work in to get what we, constantly fight for what we want. So it's just, the internal struggle. And I hope that we're moving in a direction where these systems, we see changes. You're starting to see different things change and grow. And that's great. But I want to see more of that. And it's, and I'm talking tribal government. I'm talking about all of these other agencies that are doing this work that, you know, say, oh yeah, food sovereignty is great, but when it really comes down to it, do they even know what that is? You know, that's all I'm going to say.
No, I really, you know, it's kind of an elephant in the room, because I think there's some, you know, assumptions about how, you know, tribes are really cohesive in their, you know, in their approach to food sovereignty. In that, you know, there's one of my friends that I worked with at Red Earth Gardens here at Meskwaki, he framed it as, you know, right now we're dealing with so many competing, competing, I guess, objectives, right? Which one of the overarching ones is, you know, how are we going to make money? And food sovereignty is not about money, you know, it isn't. It's about, you know, a return to our ancestral food ways. You know? So that's like so cross competing. That's just, and it's just like we, you know, it's you know, the operation that you work on has a store, but that's about access, isn't it, Rosebud?
For
More
sure.
than,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's more about access than it is, you know, about how much money we're going to make from that store. By the way, it's a beautiful store. I wish we had one here at Meskwaki. Hopefully we will. Shiloh, any thoughts on challenges and barriers and how you've worked through them?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with both of you, you know, conflicting worldviews or priorities, values of, you know, folks that we are in community with, that, you know, just the larger society that we exist in, is a huge challenge. You know, I think that there's so much labor that Indigenous people often have to do, not just Indigenous people, you know, bodies of culture and color have to do to often, you know, for others to understand our value in the world and to current times. And that just takes so much energy to do that. To just be able to, like, for people, help other people understand that you should be able to live your life as an Indigenous person, just because you are an Indigenous person, period. And not have to explain why you're doing things a certain way, for that to be valid. And, you know, that's a shifting worldview and like consciousness in that way is a huge challenge. I'm not going to say that I've made like huge marks in that way, but I think by us telling our stories and speaking from the heart like we are today, out here living our truths, and, you know, like we said, preparing others and future generations to continue on. You know, I think that's how it's going to be done. You know, out there telling our stories and sharing our narratives of our work in our own voices is a really big, important piece of it.
Yeah, thank you. Another thing to maybe go over really quick is just mentioning some strengths and opportunities that have come up during this partnership, the rematriation partnership, if you would.
I'll just say briefly, and I think this is marks of good allyship for any group, is that Seed Savers has always looked to the Indigenous growers to make the final decision on things, and really supported our agency and autonomy. It hasn't been an afterthought. It hasn't been, oh, we're going to consult with you and get your thoughts and maybe we'll incorporate that. It hasn't been like that at all. It has been like our priorities are at the forefront. And for me, that's something that I'm always, if people are really about supporting Indigenous communities and food sovereignty, like that agency, that Indigenous agency and autonomy, I think should be at the forefront. And but also just the, you know, the stipends that we received as part of this partnership were huge. I mean, obviously money is a reality of the world that we live in today. And like for myself, I was able to put that towards walk behind tractor, which Rosebud and I cleared a lot of land by hand in Detroit, and I would not recommend that unless you have to. So I was really grateful to have those resources and that type of support as well. But just I think the relationships or relationship building that the folks at Seed Savers have done and continue to do really speak really for themselves, that all of us are here. We're I think all of us would be really happy to enter into this partnership again. And yeah, it's just been a real joy to be in this type of relationship with the organization.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you there for sure. You know, to add on to that, you know, the draw for me was being able to do this work alongside of growers that I admire and that I've been learning from already. I mean, I'm not an expert in this field. I'm outstanding in my field. No, just kidding. As all farmers are, right? Sorry. But, you know, you know, all of these growers, Becky and Jessica, and even Shiloh, are inspiring, and they're my teachers. And, you know, being able to have this opportunity to do that is just, you know, why wouldn't I do that? So it's been great. It's been a really great experience, and I ditto everything that Shiloh said about working with Seed Savers and this project. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, and real quick, I think, and I do see in the chat, you know, that there's a lot of folks that are excited about, you know, allyship, as well as learning more about the seeds, including, you know, some folks interested in accessing these seeds. So, and of course we've got about a minute, but any comments about being a good ally, especially taking into consideration appropriation, right?
You want to go, or do you want me to?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So my go-to advice, whether it be seeds or really anything when it comes to allyship, is to ask the individual or the community that you want to be an ally to, how can I be in good relationship with you in this way? Simple as that. And really listen to it. Really, you know, really listen to what they respond with. And you know, be humble too. You know, it's okay that if you don't know the right way, the fact that you're asking, like, how can I be respectful to you and to your seeds? I mean, that in itself it can be revolutionary in a lot of settings for people to say that and really mean it. So yeah, that's my advice, is just to ask people, how can I be in good relationship with you?
Yeah. I mean, and, you know, I get that question a lot. And, you know, to add on, I think that it's helpful to remember that we're all land-based people, no matter where our ancestors originated from. we have this connection to this land. And if we take the view of, Native folks, Indigenous folks, we all have respect for every living being. And again, like, we don't own this land, we don't own land, we belong to the land. The land owns us. And how, if we think about it in that way, I think things start to align. And that view has helped me going forward. And I mean, that's been drilled in my head since I was probably a baby. So but yeah.
Wow. That's thank you so much for both of you and everything you've contributed. And like, there's so much that we weren't able to cover. Like, it's a short hour. At the same time, it's wow. You've covered a lot of ground here, and I think you've imparted like some of the most important I guess a way of thinking, about rematriation that a lot of folks just are new to. So thank you to both of you. I'm going to see, Meredith, do we have any final goodbyes here or anything, any housekeeping to finish up with?
I think, Phil, are you going to come back on?
Hello, Phil.
Sure, I'll come back on. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to learn more. Just to let everybody know, I forgot to mention this in the beginning, but this partnership was funded by SARE, Sustainable Agriculture Research Education, for 2 years in a row, which they normally don't do, but they really believe in this this work. And so big thank you to them for funding this. We have some save the dates, March 1st with the food sovereignty group at the Meskwaki Nation. So that's March 1st. We're trying to work on another one with a couple other partners, but we're waiting to hear back from them because one of them either just had a baby or is due any day now. So hopefully everything is going well with her. But so March 1st, save the date. More info will be coming out about that. And then another one hopefully coming out pretty soon too. So stay tuned, and thank you again, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Can I add one thing?
Absolutely.
Of course.
I don't know if it was said already, but Shiloh just launched her podcast called Spirit Plate. And I feel like a proud mama right now. Like, if we were all together, I'd make you all stand up and give her a standing ovation. I listened to it this morning and I was in tears. Y'all need to listen to it wherever you get your podcast. She's not going to tell you, so I'm going to tell you. Spirit Plate, go listen.
Thanks, buddy.
You're welcome.
Heather has already dropped the link, so
Good. It's so good.
can't wait to hear.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Shelley.
Yeah.
Yeah.